All right, this one starts, and we're just going to dive on in, right? This one starts with one of the most recognized people in magic, right? In the field of magic, in the profession of magic, whatever you want to call it. If I had to ask you what the most recognized face, right? The most famous person in all of history who's done magic, or maybe the most successful, who would you say? On the count of three, just shout it out. 1, 2, 3. I heard Houdini and I heard David Copperfield, right? If you went with the last one with Copperfield, I think you nailed it on the head, right? You go to Forbes magazine, go to the Guinness Book of World Records, go to the box office. I mean, this guy's a giant. You look at his stats and you got things like this guy who was named David Kotkin. He started doing magic at age 10, and over the last 50 years, he's racked up 11 different Guinness World Records. You've got that. He's made over $4 billion in ticket sales. That's a lot. He now owns a chain of 11 resort islands in the Bahamas. We've all been there. He's won 21 Emmy Awards. He's on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's got a star there. He's been knighted by the French government, for crying out loud, and the U.S. Library of Congress declared him a living legend. Right? This guy is accomplished. But here's the thing. If you track his entire career back, what you find is, I believe, all that success, all that accomplishment, you can boil it down to one moment in time where his career just took off like crazy. It was the moment in 1983 when he made something disappear, something really big. Now, he'd made a Learjet disappear before that, but for whatever reason, that didn't get our imagination so much as the day he made the Statue of Liberty disappear. On that day, in front of like 600 people who were watching it themselves, he pulled this off right here. Check it out. The moment that made him famous. How did he do it, right? In the time since, we found out what bright lights can do to your eyes, but moving on, right? He made the Statue of Liberty disappear. This is amazing, right? And immediately he becomes this household name across America, starts selling out. I mean, selling out any show he does around the world. This guy's the man. Why? Because he made something disappear. And there's something about that whole idea of disappearing that we love. I mean, I think it starts whenever you're a little kid, object permanence, and people are doing peekaboo with you. They're like, peekaboo. You're like, ah, I just love it. Look, they disappeared. It's awesome, right? You get a little bit bigger, you think you can close your eyes and disappear, right? And then it goes. I think all of us, if you can make something disappear, look like it vanished, we're going to give you an audience. Hey, that's pretty cool. I want to watch that. I want to see that. We even like jokes about things that disappear. Like the one I heard this past week. You've got a student of magic who comes up to someone and he says, hey, look, I'll make myself disappear. On the count of 3, he starts counting in Spanish, uno, dos, and then poof, disappeared without a trace. What? There it is. We like that stuff. Some of you are going, that is cheesy. Absolutely, because that's how we roll, right? There you go, right? We like this idea of disappearing, but every now and then, here's where we're going to go today. Every now and then, what we find out is this, that disappearing, even though we love it in this area, we don't love it so much over here. Every now and then, we get this inkling, and then it gets imprinted on us that disappearing has a dark side. Every now and then, what disappears isn't what we would want to disappear. Disappearing has a dark side. If you go to 2 Chronicles chapter 26, find the life of a guy who acts this out for us in real time. A fellow by the name of Uzziah. And we're going to look at his story today, and we're going to look at quite a few verses about it. I just wanted to let you know ahead of time, that way you can dig in, know what you're in for. Uzziah, we come across his story. He's age 16, and he's just experienced someone disappearing that he cared about. A dark side of disappearing. Age 16, his father, who was the king, is assassinated, and so now he's crowned king. Right? That's some difficult stuff right there, but what you find from that moment to the moment we're going to move toward is that his life just kind of takes off from there. Right? If you get the span of his life, what you'll notice are, quite a few things about it. From that moment, that dark moment, this guy whose name means Yahweh is my strength. Right? His name means God is my strength. Right? He starts to make these moves that lays this firm foundation for his life and leads him to build quite a bit and to get quite a few things in his view. Verse 3 says he's going to have a 52-year reign. Verse 4 kind of tells you what it was that charted his trajectory. Verse 4 says that he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Amaziah had done. He sought God during the days of Zechariah, who did what? He instructed him. Zechariah instructed him in the fear of the Lord. Zechariah was a prophet of God, evidently was his counselor, so he had a godly mentor who pointed him in the right direction. And because of that, it says as long as he sought the Lord, as long as he did that, as long as he intentionally pursued God, God gave him success. There it is, as long as he did that. Right? You keep reading from there and you find out what success looked like. It's a few verses, but notice this, verse 6 through 7. It looks like becoming a man of might. He was mighty. It says that he went to war against the Philistines and broke down the walls of Gath, Jabneh, and Ashdod, key towns for the Philistines. He then rebuilt towns near Ashdod and elsewhere among the Philistines. God helped him. There it is. God helped him against the Philistines and against the Arabs who lived in Gur-Baal and against the Meunites. He's this capable military leader. He ended up expanding the borders of Israel, right? And not only did he expand them, he did it in the face of one of the most formidable fighting forces on the face of the planet. Over the Philistines, he's doing this. He's a mighty man, but not so much because it was his power, but because it was God's power working through him. But because of that, he became a man of might. And with that, he developed a pretty solid reputation. You keep reading. He becomes famous. Verse 8, the Ammonites brought tribute to Uzziah, one of the neighboring countries. They brought tribute to him. And what? His fame spread as far as the border of Egypt because he had become very powerful. And because of his fame, he got this reputation. And now you've got neighboring countries bringing him tribute, which is kind of like, please don't wipe us out. We give you this to become your friends so you don't feel the need to take us over too. He's a famous guy, respected guy. Not only that, he's an industrious guy. Verse 9 and 10, he built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, at the valley gate, at the angle of the wall, and he fortified them. He also built towers in the wilderness and dug many cisterns or wells in the ground because he had much livestock in the foothills and in the plain. He had people working his fields and vineyards in the hills and in the fertile lands, for he loved the soil. In other words, over the 52 years this guy's going to reign as king, he made all of these improvements to the infrastructure of Israel. I mean, he's continually developing what they have to the point where they excel agriculturally, and then they, as a result, get ahead economically because of the trade that comes from that. This guy's the man. He's industrious. And you get to verse 11 and 13, and he's prepared too. Yeah, you've got success. All of a sudden, people want to bring you down. That's kind of how life works. And so he prepares. You want to do it? Fill your hands. Here it goes. Uzziah had a well-trained army that was ready to go out by divisions according to their numbers, right? As mustered by Jael, the secretary, and Maaseiah, the officer, under the direction of Hananiah, one of the royal officials. The total number of family leaders, over the fighting men was 2,600 family leaders. Under their command was an army of how much? 307,000, right? All men trained for war, a powerful force to support the king against his enemies. He was prepared. Not only had he developed a nation, but now he had developed a force to defend that nation. They could defend the borders of their country against whoever came against them. They were prepared. Last one, he was inventive and equipped. That's what I call it. You can put your own name on it. It says that he provided shields, spears, helmets, coats of armor, bows, and sling stones for an entire army. And then verse 15 says, in Jerusalem, he made devices invented for use on the towers and on the corner defenses so that soldiers could shoot arrows and hurl large stones from the walls. He invested in, he invented technology to keep his nation strong. And I look at what he did, I'm just going, man, Lord of the Rings, eat your heart out. That's what it looks like to me. They're like slinging stones, all kinds of stuff going down. Inventive, equipped. In other words, he was the man. He was the man. If you look at it, the brief of it goes something like this. He was mighty, famous, industrious, prepared, inventive, and equipped. And because that was the case, first part of verse 15 just says this. It says, his fame spread far and wide, for he was greatly, what? Helped. He was greatly helped. But then it comes, right? And you know something is in the air the second you read one word. All of a sudden, you get that word disappearing. And it starts to come close to his story. You read it in the last part of 15, it says this. It says, for he was greatly helped, what? Until he became powerful. What happened? Right, you just read that one word, and what do you tell it? You're just going, man, dark days are ahead. Dark days are ahead. He was helped until he was successful because of until you're going, dark days. And as is often the case with dark days, that word disappearing comes. And with disappearing, that's not as bad. It's that dark side of it that we don't like so much. And he's going, yeah, you don't. Watch what happens when the dark side of disappearing comes close to your story. Right? You hit that and it says this, verse 16. But. Now you throw that word in there, it's not good. Disappearing's coming. He had accumulated and built much by God's help. But after Uzziah became powerful, his what? It was his pride that led to his downfall. He was unfaithful to the Lord his God. And then what did that look like? Welcome to these next few verses. Right? He entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense, which is okay for priests. It's not okay for the king. Who says so? God says so. So what happens? Azariah the priest with 80 other courageous priests of the Lord. Man, if you're going to confront a king, you bring some backup. That's what's happening here. Get 80 other guys with me. So funny. We're here for an intervention. You're like, kind of got that feeling. Our house is packed. It's one of those that's going down. Azariah the priest with 80 other courageous priests of the Lord followed him in. They confronted King Uzziah and they said, it is not right for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord. That is for the priests, the descendants of Aaron, who have been consecrated to do it. Leave the sanctuary, for you have been unfaithful. You've been unfaithful, and you will not be honored by the Lord your God. Did he get up and leave? You're right, my bad. Oh no, Uzziah, who had a censer in his hand ready to burn incense, became angry. How dare you? Who do you think you are? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Right? And he just starts reading them the riot act. Right? It says, while he was raging at the priests. Oh, he was letting them have it. While he was raging at the priests in their presence before the incense altar in the Lord's temple, leprosy broke out across his forehead. When Azariah, the chief priest, and all the other priests looked at him and they saw he had leprosy on his forehead, they saw it, so they hurried him out. Indeed, he was eager to leave because the Lord had afflicted him, and then it goes from there. You just notice all these things start disappearing from his life. King Uzziah had leprosy until the day he died. It was a death sentence. You get that, and all of a sudden you're cut off from people you know, cut off from worship. And it says that he lived in a separate house, a leprous, and banned from the temple of the Lord. Jotham, his son, had charge of the palace and governed the people of the land. The other events of his reign from beginning to end are recorded by the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz. And in the end, he rested with his ancestors and was buried where? Near them. Not where they were, but near them. In a cemetery they owned, but we're just not going to put you in this. I'll put you close, right? And why? Because the people said that was his enduring legacy. There was. What did people remember about him after he left? He had leprosy. What was the inscription on his tombstone? He had leprosy. It wasn't all these things that he had amassed. No, all those things disappeared. Now all that remained was that. He had leprosy, and Jotham, his son, succeeded him as king. All right, you read that, and you get this powerful reminder that disappearing has a dark side, and not all disappearing is created equal. I mean, when it's the Statue of Liberty, it's one thing, right? But whenever it's your reputation, whenever it's your life, whenever it's things you hold dear, it's another thing altogether, right? Disappearing has a dark side. You look there, you see that. You also see this. You see the key reason why the dark side of disappearing comes into our life. It's that word pride, right? Word pride. In all of his planning, building, accumulating, having, what ended up happening was as that came in, something else left. At some point, he started to forget that everything he had was because of God. He started to believe that it was all because of him. And then he started to believe he deserved it, believed that he was above it. He even believed he was kind of above God. I'll just tell God what to do, what he should be happy with instead of the other way around. And in the end, what he leaves us with is this equation that goes something like this, that pride plus what? People equals tragedy. Pride plus people equals tragedy that leads to the dark side of disappearing. And you look at that and you're going, okay, maybe this is a lesson that we need to learn, right? Because you look at your life and you're going, these same descriptions that were true of his life are true of our lives as well, right? You look around and you say that like him, some of us, we have a certain amount of might. Right? We're mighty, we're influential, we're powerful. When we speak, other people listen, and we kind of like that too. You know, whether it's our kids, whether it's people at work, we've got influence. At the spot where we work, we got influence in some organization, our family system, our neighborhood, and we dig that. Like him, some of us, we've got a certain amount of fame. We've got a reputation. There are people that know us. We are known. Even if it's just in your friend group, you're known. Get on Twitter. People follow you. You're on Facebook. They like your posts. There it is. You got your name in the program. People have your name. You're an officer in the organization. There it is. Whenever your name is mentioned, people think of just how wealthy you are, talented or smart or industrious. You get it. Some of you, you're prepared too. Look at that. He was prepared. You are too. You made a living out of having the right word, or a life out of having the right words to say, or you made a life out of having the right thing to give at the right moment. I mean, for every situation, you know exactly what to do. Someone did a study and they found out that the 3 hardest words to say in the English language, they aren't I love you. You know what they are? Nope, I'm sorry, it's 2. I am. So you're like, I'm going to break it down. No. I don't know. 3 hardest words to say in the English language. I don't know. And some of you are like, I get that. I get that. I'm always right. And when I'm right, I'm right. You know, you've got that. You're even inventive. You're equipped. You've gotten really creative about it, man. You've made a life out of equipping yourself with what money can buy. You're rolling in wheels. Maybe you got some more square footage on your house the right way, and you're wearing the new clothes. You've got the latest technology. I mean, there it is. And you look at Uzziah's story, and what you realize is none of those things are bad. None of those things are bad in of themselves. I mean, they're just what God blesses you with. Right? God gives you that. You look at them and you're just reminded that, you know what, upward mobility is a reality in America. It is. What do they say? Graduate high school, get married, get a job. You will not stay poor in America for very long. Got those 3 things, you can rise above the level of poverty 9 times out of 10 in America. That's the magic formula. It's a reality. You look at that and you've got it. The problem comes whenever we stir then pride into the mix. It's that word. Whenever that happens, something happens to our ego, who we are, right? And we go from this spot where we're exalting God only with our lives to a spot where we begin doing what? Edging God out. Just kind of edging him out. And you get the way that feels. Right? You start to just say, you know what, God, you should be content with this much of my time. You know, you should be content with this much of my resources, this much of what I have to give, you know, and you do that subtly. Just with the way you're living. God, this is the way it happened. And somewhere in the mix, we forget that pride is the oldest sin in the book. Before Adam and Eve sinned with fruit in the garden, right? They ate what they shouldn't have eaten. A long time before that, Satan, this angel Lucifer, looked at God and he said, you know what? I want what he has. He wanted to be like God. More than that, he wanted to tell God what to do instead of the other way around. Right? And you look and you're just going, man, that's easy to do. Right? You've all seen this where people get a little bit of authority and influence and it kind of goes to their head, or you upgrade your life, get some things figured out, and that just makes you a difficult person to be around, or you accumulate some things and all of a sudden that takes your focus. Right? And the problem comes whenever you sift through it, you start to believe that it was because of you and what you did that you have those things in your life. And like Uzziah, you find out far too late that disappearing has this dark side. You look around and just tell me if I'm wrong on this. Tell me if you haven't seen someone who traded their marriage for more power and authority in the home. I'm right. I will have my way no matter what. They found out too late when their marriage evaporated or quality in marriage evaporated that disappearing had a dark side. Tell me if you haven't seen people who've sacrificed a relationship with God so that their kids are better known in a community or better known in a town. Tell me if you haven't seen people who've given more time and more time to work in the pursuit of more and better, and they've sacrificed time with their family as a result. Their kids don't even know them or want to be around them. But boy, do they have a nice place to stay. Tell me if you haven't seen someone who's spent a life to be prepared, but now no one wants what they have because they don't want to be around the person who's always right. Person who's always got to have it this way. Because look, my way works every time. Tell me if you haven't seen the people who can look at Matthew 16 and say, you know what, Jesus is right. It really is possible to gain the world and lose your soul, to lose what matters. Tell me if you haven't seen that Proverbs chapter 16 or chapter 18, 16 verse 18 there really does carry weight, that pride goes then before destruction, that haughty, high-minded spirit before a fall. There's this dark side to disappearing that we find out. And so here's my question. We'll spend the next 8-10 minutes on it. It goes like this. If that's the case, then how do we move in a different direction? If that's the case, how do we live out what I call the principle of humility, where we begin to exalt God only with our lives? How do we do that? How do we do that? You go to Philippians 2 and it gets the party started just by describing what doing that looks like. In Philippians 2 it says, oh, you want to be about humility. It says, all right, here's what it looks like. It says your attitude then should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but he made himself nothing. He emptied himself, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, being found in appearance as a man. He did what? He humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross, right? There's the picture of it. Jesus acts it out for us. You look here and what you notice is humility has about 3 different characteristics to it. You've got someone here, and like Jesus, you lower yourself. You say, you know what? I'm going to arrange myself under someone else. I'm going to consider them. All right, we'll crack that open here in just a second, but notice that. You lower yourself, and you do it willingly. No one forced him into this. Right? This is humility, not humiliation. That's when you get forced. Now, you're going to lower yourself willingly, and then what do? Well, you forego your status. It says he's not going to use that to his own advantage or to take advantage of others because he's got it. Now, I'm going to use my status to serve and to help other people. I'm going to use my resources in their direction to benefit them. Right? And when you do that, the principle of humility is lived out in your life. You begin to exalt God only with your life. Right? If you go back to the verses before that, verses 3 and 4, what you notice is moving in this direction. Or if we go in this direction or choose to head in that direction, there are at least a couple different moves that build that into our lives. A couple ways that we can do that. You go to verse 3 and 4, and you find that first move. They just tell you that we are to do how much? Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility. Consider others better than yourselves. Do not, it says, don't look only to your own interests, but look also to the interests of others. Go there. In other words, you build humility by doing this. Right? Here's our call today. Making a move toward people. In a word, it's service. It's just service. A while ago, I can remember hearing a guy by the name of Nick Walenda who lived this one out. Nick Walenda, he got famous for, if David Copperfield got famous for making things disappear, this guy got famous for walking across things. Most notably, though, he walks a high wire across things. And it's not just things. He walks a high wire across things like the Grand Canyon, like Niagara Falls, stuff that's just jaw-dropping. You did what? Again, this guy is nuts, right? He's definitely not afraid of heights. Let's just start there and off we go. Right? And he goes. But what you'll find is what he's most afraid of isn't falling from heights, right? It's falling from grace, falling away from God. You get to talking to him, what you realize is this. The guy's a Christian. He follows God, and because he follows God, he watches it. He watches himself. He does it in a really cool way. Hey, he's just going, you know what? I've got so many people who are going, wow, Nick, you're the man. It's like that could straight up and down go to my head. So what do I do to make sure I'm still exalting God only with my life and I don't just start pulling away? I go to one of his events, you'll find out exactly how he does it. Because what you'll notice is after he's done walking across whatever he just did and making you go, oh my, right? Then he sits at a table and he'll sign autographs till the last person comes through. If you want an autograph, there you go. Everyone leaves, he comes back. And if you're there, you'll see this guy with a trash bag in one hand, just picking up the trash of everyone who came to watch him. This guy picks up the garbage of the people who were just screaming his praises. Oh, you're something else. He intentionally serves them so that the fall he experiences with his life will never be that fall that leads to the dark side of disappearing. Right? Service brings it in. And I look at that and I'm going, you know what? You look at Philippians 2 and you're going, if I move in that direction, I think it's a solid direction to do. We do that, we start exalting God only with our lives. Go to Matthew chapter 11 and you find a second direction we move in, a second move that builds humility into our lives, this place where we are exalting God only. It's this move Jesus talks about. I'll lead with it. It's a move toward God himself. It's a move toward God himself. And we move toward him to be obedient to him. Like Uzziah started with it. Spend more time with him in his word, serving, giving to him. You get all of that. Jesus put it this way. Here's the call. He said, come to me. Come to me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke, take my teaching on you, and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart. Do that, and you will find rest for your souls. You won't gain the world and lose your soul. Now, you'll find rest. You'll find what you need most at the deepest level of your life. You're not going to see the dark side of disappearing. I'll guide you in the right way. He says, for my yoke is easy. My burden is light. I look at that and I'm just reminded that far too often our identity, who we are, is wrapped up in like this AAA scheme, right? We got like this AAA identity. It's our achievements, our address, our assets. If we've got the right, or the right amount, then we're feeling like we've got something and that we are something. And you know that because whenever you meet someone, we always ask, where do you live? There it is. Where do you live and what do you do? And we just want to know about people. I'm going, sure we do. We also want to know where to put people. Where do you live? That's telling me where I can put you. What do you do? That's telling me where I can put you too. Well, because of that, we just get caught up in this scheme where we start to wrap our identity then around our assets, around the type of car we drive, around the sort of house we live in and where that house is located, around the sort of trips we take, when we travel, around the clothes we wear, jewelry we have, hobbies that we're able to pursue. And you look at this, and this is a clear call from Jesus to go, no. Let's not do that. All right, come to me. Come to me. Don't wrap your identity on who you are that way. Build it around whose you are. Remember this, 1 Peter 2. Remember that you are a chosen people. You're a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation, a people belonging to God. You belong to God. Your identity comes not from who you are, but from whose you are. We start moving in God's direction. And all of a sudden what you find is that rest for your soul, that direction that's good for your soul, comes close to your life. I love the way Denzel Washington put this a couple years back. He spoke at the 2015 commencement for Dillard University in New Orleans. During his speech, right? This famous movie star, he urges his students to move in this direction, or the students to go there. He says, you know what? You need to put God first and thank Him constantly. Here's an excerpt from his speech. He said this. He said, put God first in everything you do. He said, everything I have is by the grace of God. Understand that. He said, it's a gift. I don't always stick with Him, but He stuck with me. While you're on your knees, he said, say thank you. Thank you for grace. Thank you for mercy. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for wisdom. Thank you for parents. Thank you for love. Thank you for kindness. Thank you for humility. Thank you for peace. Thank you for prosperity. He said, say thank you. Say thank you. Look at that, and I'm going, you know what? If you move in that direction, you're not going to find the dark side of disappearing with your life. Right? You're going to move straight toward the principle of humility and the sort of solidity that it brings to everything you do. You will have this place that you live from that says, I'm exalting God only. And God's going to look and say, now there's someone I can pour blessing on. And one of the saddest things for me, whenever I look at the life of Uzziah, is that end part. I think maybe you felt it, right? If you're with me, you felt it. Where this guy who had so much watched it all evaporate. And then the worst piece was this, his enduring legacy, what he was remembered for when he left. It's just those three words. He had leprosy. He had leprosy. Friends, I hear that and I get this clear call for all of us to chart a different course with our lives, to exalt God only, and to build a different legacy, to be known for so much more than that, to let God guide us into that. And so today as we wrap this up, let's take up that charge. Let's make a move toward people. Let's look at the way that we're serving and the way that we're caring and reaching. And let's make a move toward God. And with the last one, if you've never said, hey, I want to come, I want to follow Jesus, I want to get baptized, you can do that. We're going to play a song. While we do that, you can come up front, join me up here. We can take your confession, baptize you into Christ today. If you're here today and you're going, you know what? I've been living apart from God. I just have. I haven't been giving Him what I know He requires of me. Been edging God out. If you're there, then while we sing, this is a powerful time for you to recommit yourself, to say, God, I'm going to exalt you only. There are commitments I've made to you I'm going to follow through on. I'm going to follow through on that. Why don't you stand with me and we'll create some space for that.